Hey, Nicole. Hey, Nicole.
Hey.
Hey, Nicole. Hey,
Hey.
Nicole.
What?
Hey, guess what?
What?
Hey, Nikki, you're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey, Nikki. Hey, Nikki. Hey, Nikki, you're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey, Nikki. Hey, Nikki. Woo! Woohoo!
My cat is on my pom-pom. We're going to fight. Me and my cat are going to fight. He's too tired to fight.
It's loading. That was too much for my process. Okay, let's start the review.
Okay.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben, your underground conductor, and welcome to Underground Cinema. Today I have with me Nicole. Say hi to my slowly growing audience, Nicole.
What's up?
You know, it's so funny. They do not get to hear any of that story you just told me.
Why
I'm
not?
cutting it all out.
Okay.
It's funny. I'm cutting it all out. I will tell them it involves a graveyard, and that's it.
Yep.
Yep, it's great.
Mishaps in the graveyard.
What happens in graveyards, stay in graveyards.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho, I'm excited to have you on. You know, just like every other guest I've had before, you've had a very pivotal role in how I've developed underground cinema. As I've mentioned many times already, underground cinema started off as a streaming night that I did in college for the Screenwriting Club. You became president after the Bailey brothers, who were my last guests. And yeah, no, I you know, you were very supportive, of my want to do that. I mean, obviously you were suspicious given the first movie I wanted to show, but yeah, we'll get to it. I was thinking about
will we?
We'll get to it. I was thinking about reviewing it this month, but you told me no, don't do that. Don't do that during Pride
Not this
Month.
month. Not during Pride Month.
Not during Pride Month.
No female genocide during Pride Month.
No female genocide. We'll save that for later.
Well, yeah, it happens all the other months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll get to it eventually, but today we'll be talking about a movie that we actually did play in the original Underground Cinema. You know, one of your favorite films, But I'm a Cheerleader. Yep. So this will actually be the last review that I do for Pride Month, which is ironic because as of recording, I haven't even done my first recording for Pride Month. This is the first recording for Pride Month that I'm doing with you. You know, my birthday was last week, so I was too busy to do anything else. But no, I'm excited to talk about this with you. Like I mentioned, this is one of your favorite movies. You recommended it for the original Underground Cinema movie nights. And, you not only were you supportive back in college, for my desire of having these streaming nights, but, afterwards, you weren't just supportive, you were pushing me to actually start this YouTube channel.
Yeah, I think people can tell how much you love talking about movies. So
yeah. And you were absolutely right. This is something that I should have done a lot sooner, and I'm glad that I'm doing it now. I mean, it's a lot of editing. And I was talking to one of our friends recently, our good friend Taiki, and he was telling me, Ben, you're making your videos too long. They're not accessible. And I'm like, I know.
Editing's hard.
Editing is hard, but also like I've just taken deeper looks at the films I've talked about. I want to go back to making shorter reviews. I really do. But like, there's just so much to dissect with different films. Yeah. I noticed that this is definitely more of a problem with movies I'm passionate about. Like more passionate about. It's like I have more to say.
Yeah. I know. Maybe people feel like that too, because it's like once you watch a movie and you really love it and you want more, or you want to talk about it or get different perspectives about it. Mm-hmm. Times a little 5-minute clip isn't enough.
Yeah, it really isn't. I envy people who can articulate their full opinion in 5 minutes or less. For me, I have to be like, okay, this, and this. I have to go into great detail about it, which we'll be doing with But I'm a Cheerleader. It's gonna be a great time. So I typically start my reviews with a synopsis of the movie. I would call it quick, but it's not going to be quick. We're gonna break a lot of stuff down here because this is a dense piece of satire. So dense that I didn't even get it the first time I watched it, like 4 or 5 years ago. Like, you know this because we rewatched the movie together. And this is going to be a lot like that experience. Just me being insufferable and pointing obvious things out.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's fun watching movies with you. It was nice. We hadn't watched a movie in a while together.
We hadn't. What was the last movie that we watched together?
Was it like, it wasn't Aquaman, was it?
No.
Okay.
No, it was not Aquaman. That was in like December of 2023. No, it was not that.
Okay.
February, March, April, May, June.
Have we had a movie night with everyone in a while?
We haven't. We haven't had a movie night with everyone in a while. What was the last movie we watched together? It couldn't have been My Bloody Valentine.
Maybe it was.
Maybe it was that. Maybe it was The Godfather.
No, I don't think I watched The Godfather with you.
You did.
No, I didn't.
We saw it at the Frida.
Oh, yeah.
It was the first time we both saw it.
It was?
Yes.
I just remember being awestruck. Like,
it's such a good movie.
This, yeah, everyone talks about this movie, but then I just thought it was this bro-y movie that like guys like to talk about. But then I saw it and
it's such a good movie brought down by its reputation. Like, that's the case for a lot of
really beautiful.
It's gorgeously shot, well acted. I love how we're gushing over The Godfather when we're talking about Cheerleader. But like, the reputation it has as one of the greatest movies ever made, it is not exaggerated. It is such a good film. This happens with so many movies that are like widely accessible, well written, creative, interesting, meaty. Like, because men are so obsessed with film in general, I'm sure I'll talk about that in my later videos during Pride Month. So many movies garner like a bro reputation despite the fact that they're not overly masculine films. Like, I think the top 3 like most popular films amongst men, and I'm not talking about the top 3 highly rated, but top 3 in terms of like popularity, would be The Godfather, Star Wars, and Shawshank Redemption.
Probably some Tarantino.
Yeah, you could throw in some Tarantino in there, like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, Killbill's a very interesting piece of feminist cinema that's almost never talked about in the feminist sense. It's very intriguing. But I just remember the last film we watched together. It was Return to Oz.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyway, let's jump into But I'm a Cheerleader. And funny us bringing up Tarantino, because the film opens up with a very gratuitous montage, Tarantino style, I'm trying to remember the name of the song. Let me check. I'm just gonna check. I'm tired of trying to pretend like I know everything. I've grown as a person.
I can hear the song in my head, but let me.
Yeah, it's a Chick Habit by April March, which was a song that was played in Tarantino's movie Death Proof. I pointed that out immediately when we watched it.
That's right.
Yeah, I was like, this is the song from Death Proof. It's from the Grindhouse double feature, which is actually not 2 films, but 6 films. I'll get to it eventually. But it's a very gratuitous montage showing, just close-up shots of, cheerleaders, a lot of TNA shots, which is, funny because that goes into a topic I want to cover, the concept of the female gaze. Obviously this is a movie about a lesbian discovering herself, and it's also a movie that's directed by a lesbian, by Jamie Babbit. This was actually her first feature film. Following this, she's done mostly work in TV. She's made a couple films here and there, like the Itty Bitty Titty Committee, but she does most of her work in TV nowadays. But this was her first feature film, and it's interesting how the opening shot is just gratuitous TNA of cheerleaders doing their routines. And this is a concept that's discussed in, I feel like, the modern cinematic landscape, but it's not really explored in any significant way. The concept of the female gaze, film historically has been an avenue of sexual exploitation in a variety of different ways. And, one of the more frequently exploitative maneuvers is, just objectifying shots of female bodies, which I'm fine with, completely, as you could tell. I mean, I think Jean-Luc Godard, father of French filmmaking, said that the history of film was a history of men photographing their girlfriends, which is, But, it's interesting here because obviously this is by nature a very sexual film, and opening the film like this not only works to set the tone, but also sort of, it's interesting in the way that it reinforces but also subverts the concept of the gaze and objectification. I feel like there's an interesting discussion to be had here, which we could get into later during the discussion portion. But that's how the film opens. And following that, we see that all the cheerleaders are just don't even have their tops. They're just wearing their sports bras and their skirts, and it's because, they have to pick up their uniforms from the dry cleaner. That's a hilarious justification for all this. Good for you, movie.
That's interesting. When I didn't ever think about, I just thought that that was their cheerleading uniform. Like, it wasn't until you pointed that out that there would be more to their uniform.
I mean, obviously, we all go to high school, and in high school, you see cheerleading uniforms. It's supposed to have like the logo of the school on the top, or like maybe the school's the school's acronym. And there was just nothing. It was just it was just a sports bra.
Yeah.
And they even say in dialogue in the movie, "Oh, we have to pick up our uniforms at the dry cleaners." I'm like, that is just so funny. That's just a really funny in-world explanation for why it's like that. But yeah, what was that?
Production design budget.
Oh yeah, we will get to the production design. Trust me, we will get to that because there's a lot I want to talk
about.
Like, yeah, no, I know that you're.
That's my favorite part about it.
Oh, I know that's your favorite part about it. Not only is it the field that you work in, but it's also very unique in this film, and I do want to talk about it in great detail because it's very interesting. I did a lot of research on color scheming when I was looking into this film. But in any case, we meet our central character, Megan, played by Natasha Lyonne, and she's walking with her boyfriend, and they're just talking about this big game they have coming up, and then it pivots to a scene of them making out in his car. It's just so funny.
It's funny.
It's so funny.
Her eyes are like wide open, and she's like so disinterested, but she's like, I think I really like. It's very relatable, this whole like, you just kind of think that this is how it is. Megan just thought like that was what it was supposed to be.
Oh yeah, she thought she was supposed to be bored. I remember the character of Alyssa says this in Chasing Amy, which is actually going to be the first movie I ever read for Pride Month. She says that, "Oh, Banky, you probably go down on a girl and you don't notice that bored look in her eyes." And I'm like, yeah, no, like Megan in that scene, her eyes are just completely glazed over. Like, she's not in that moment at all. And I remember I brought this up while we were watching the film. It's very obvious to everyone except for Megan that she is a lesbian. But also, two things can be true at once. Maybe he's just bad at it.
Sure.
Like you see it.
It's not to him.
What?
But yeah.
I mean, you see it in the movie. You see him like it's like he's devouring her. It's like, I mean, and I'm in no place to judge on that, but it's ridiculous. It's like, dude, you do not know what you're doing at all. Like, at all. Like, even if she wasn't a lesbian, he like she says later in the film that maybe he doesn't do it right. Yeah, no shit, he doesn't do it right. He doesn't do it right. But, they make out in the car, and she's just having fantasies of, the cheerleading practice she just had, which is a very quick and easy way to reuse the footage you just shot. And, it's meant to like sort of reinforce this idea that, she's not into the standard stuff. We'll call it that. We'll dance around the subject during Pride Month. We'll dance around.
Call it standard stuff. I think that's one of the big things about
this
movie.
Like the idea of like what is normal and how people what is standard, what is normal, and how people gatekeep what is considered normal. That is a big theme of this film.
And that's something within that kiss is like, she thinks this is normal. And she repeats it later when she's, at the camp, where she's like, I just thought everyone, or maybe it's during intervention, I just thought everyone had these thoughts. I thought everyone had these feelings.
She says it during her first meeting with Mary, the woman that runs the camp. Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to Mary. After the makeout scene, we pivot to a very passive aggressive dinner scene with her parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I pointed this out while we were watching the movie. It's like, oh, she doesn't eat meat. That's a very clever visual. And, they bring up later in the movie that, vegetarianism is, a sign of a latent homosexual. I mean, that's a stereotype. I just thought it was funny, the fact that, oh, she doesn't eat meat. Of course she doesn't.
They play with stereotypes big time.
Yeah. Which is good. Like, that's part of the satire.
Yeah.
But, like, it's just, yeah, man. Yeah, guys, she doesn't have no meat. She doesn't take that. Like, I just found that hilarious because I'm an immature man. I love it. But no, like it's a very passive aggressive dinner when they're doing when they're doing prayer, when they're giving thanks for the meal that they're about to receive. The father just throws so much shade towards his daughter, and she's like, "What are you doing? What's going on?" She's overtly confused because she can tell that it's aimed toward her, but she doesn't understand why. And I think that also goes along with the consistency of her father's character. Her father is kind of a very passive aggressive man. His wife is the more active one in the relationship. I noticed that on rewatch.
Yeah.
Like she is definitely more of the, and I guess that sort of goes along with the consistency of what we learn about her character later. But anyway, the next day, you know, she goes to school, and we see throughout the school that everyone's wearing brown except for her. She's wearing a yellow dress, and that's just very clever costume design. And even the lockers are brown, but like there's layers to that. The reason all the colors you see initially in the film are like dull browns and oranges are because those are like muted, more conservative colors. It's supposed to like ground our character in what is considered normal before she goes off to, you know, camp. And, you know, obviously brown is meant to be a more earthly color. It's meant to symbolize stability, which, you know, obviously has been rocked in this situation. And orange and yellow specifically are more joyful, cheerful colors, which works for Megan because she is a cheerleader. And she's also naturally a very bubbly individual.
Yeah. I also think it could be read as like this sort of straight world, which is a little bit generic and dull. Like it's kind of like forced on you, this sort of uniform. And being queer, you have to defy that. And Megan defies that with a bit of color.
Yeah, she does defy that with a bit of color, but she's defiant. Like as the film goes on, obviously, like she sort of learns more about herself and she becomes more rebellious and more defiant. But she doesn't change who she is fundamentally, which I find interesting, and I want to talk about a bit more later.
It's like she's fine with who she is until everyone tells her she shouldn't be fine with it.
Exactly. And there's
like she doesn't notice that she's wearing yellow in a sea of brown people.
She doesn't. She's kind of
they pointed out to her.
Yeah, she's kind of ditzy, and that's fine.
No, it's not. It's because
look, Nicole, it's okay to be ditzy. I'm ditzy. It's fine. It's okay to be able to be.
I don't know if it's ditzy in this. It's like it's just her. It's like she's just living her life, and she now is getting to this point where her parents want her to conform. Everyone is like, okay, you haven't conformed yet. What is like you're not in brown yet. What's going on? They've noticed now. They've noticed now, and she's the last one to notice.
That's true, and that's why they stage an intervention for her. Mm-hmm. And the intervention scene is very interesting. First of all, we have the character Mike show up from, you know, a local camp, and Mike is played by RuPaul from RuPaul's Drag Race, which is
Straight is great.
Yeah, Straight is great. It's amazing. And I think RuPaul. I mean, you know, there's a couple different queer icons in this film. RuPaul is the most clear one. Like in the late 90s, he was like all that. I think it was like right before like the gay explosion in 2003.
The gay explosion.
Yeah. Remember how there was all these gay reality shows like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. It was like right before that blow up. You know, there was a certain level of voyeurism that became appropriate in mainstream culture. It's like, okay, we'll flirt with homosexuality even though we may not fully accept it. It was very similar to like how disco became prevalent in the 70s. Disco was essentially urban white people flirting with Africanism in a way that didn't make them feel dirty. That is until the disco demolition in Chicago, which, you know, that's a whole other thing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. But anyway, they have an intervention for Megan, and the intervention scene is the first sequence in the movie, and it happens obviously very early. I think it happens within the first 10 minutes. It's the first sequence in the movie that, you know, made the cinematography of the film really stick out because it's very subtle, but like the way the camera is framed in the intervention scenes, when it's pointed at Megan, it's framed above, pointing down at her. Meanwhile, when it's pointed at everyone else, it's down, pointing up at them. It's creating a sense of
very invasive.
It's very invasive. It's very imposing. Even though this is an intervention, and interventions are traditionally meant to confront and help someone who has a perceived problem, this is meant to be very imposing, very frightening, vaguely threatening. I stress vaguely because obviously it's not overt. It's more passive aggressive. But it's a very interesting scene, and the way it's communicated visually, I think that's interesting and subtle. Like, you know, just very subtle cinematography that communicates, oh, everyone is like looking down on you, like you're a lost child.
Yeah.
Which technically,
and they're gonna help you, and they're gonna correct you.
Yeah, they're gonna correct you. And I guess technically speaking, she is a lost child. She's supposed to be like 17 in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's not lost because of her sexuality. She's just, that's who she is in this film. But it's so funny, all the instances they point out. It's like, oh, we think you're a lesbian. You hang photos of women in your locker. You don't eat meat. You have vaginas sewn
like Georgia O'Keeffe pillows.
Yeah, like Georgia O'Keeffe.
Yeah, that was fun. That was like a fun design choice. All of that.
Yeah,
I think it was to lean into all of that for sure.
Yeah, it was very funny. And at that point, her parents are like, we're sending you to straight camp. We're going to send you to a conversion camp, which I feel like now in the year of our Lord 2025, everyone knows what conversion camp is. And I feel like most people are cognizant, even if you don't support homosexuality still, I feel like most people are cognizant of the fact that those things don't work.
Yeah. And they've been widely banned. I don't think they are nationally banned yet. I could be wrong.
I should have looked into it. It's just one of those things where it's like, it feels like we've moved on so much as a culture that feels like those things are antiquated, even though they weren't that long ago.
They weren't, though. They weren't that long ago at all. I mean, and more churches, some churches did it more than others. But yeah, I know the Mormon church had a huge network of their own conversion camps called Evergreen.
Really? Mm-hmm. That is interesting. But no, like they're sending her to straight conversion camp. It's like we think you're a lesbian, we're gonna send you away for 2 months. It will be just like summer camp, except no. And she's like, no way I'll go. Hard cut. It's like she's in the car already. I love that. Like I love sequences like that in movies. It's like, no way I'm going to do that. No way I'm going to. Nope.
Yep.
It's like, I know it's commonly used, but I just love that whenever you see it in the movie. A character's like, nope, no way I'm going to do that. No way I'm wearing that. No way I'm going there. No, blah, 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 and just immediate smash cut. It's like, no, they're already in it. It's so simple and so easy, but I love sequences like that. It's just funny to me.
Yeah. I like it too.
Yeah. And, they arrive at the camp house, which is called True Directions. And this is interesting because True Directions was actually named after a halfway house that was ran by the director's mother, by Jamie Babbit's mother. The halfway house was called New Directions. Babbit's mother ran the halfway house for young people who had drug and alcohol problems, which is good, by the way. That's good.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
I think so.
I think so. I think that's good.
Glad you think so.
But no, that's actually how Babbit came to the concept of this film. Her mother ran that halfway house, and then Babbit read an article about a man who had gone to a conversion camp and left the camp hating himself. Like it obviously didn't work. It just filled him with a sense of self-loathing. And Babbit basically combined those two ideas to create the initial concept of this film. The cheerleader aspect actually came from Babbit's girlfriend at the time, because the idea of a cheerleader is sort of a quintessential aspect of, the American experience, the American dream. White picket fence, 2 cars, 2.5 kids, suburban house, a jock son, and a cheerleader daughter. Like that's sort of the quintessential aspects of, what is seen as the American dream in America.
Yeah, anyone could be a lesbian. You never know.
Anyone can be a lesbian. Even this very stereotypical Christian cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
Also, funny thing I just want to bring up. It obviously, this is a movie about gay conversion camp, but it's called But I'm a Cheerleader. And the beginning of it had real Bring It On vibes. And Bring It On also came out in 2000.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like a month later.
It definitely played off the cheerleader type movie.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I have my copy right here.
Nice.
I think I was with you when I got this copy.
Bring It On's so good.
Bring It On is a really good movie. Yeah. Yeah. I think I got this copy with you. I got this, Step It Up, Righteous Kill, The Sixth Day, the 4 Underworld movies, a bunch of movies. I got like 8 movies that day.
When was that? Was that at
It was when we went thrifting. It was that day we spent thrifting.
Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. But they take her they take her to the conversion camp, and that's when we meet the woman who runs the camp, Mary. And Mary comes out with her son, who is gay, and she's like, "Oh, it's a good thing you brought her here. What is she? 17? 17? Oh, okay, good. She hasn't gotten to college yet. Once they have all that liberal arts brainwashing in them, it becomes harder to deal with this."
Yep.
25 years. Some things never change.
That was definitely a fun line.
It was a really fun line. But, this is where we pivot in the film to the first step of the 5-step program. And this is actually one of the big things I love about the film, the fact that the film is broken up like a rehabilitation program. Mm-hmm. In this specifically, it's like 5 steps instead of the standard 12-step alcohol program. But I love that as a way to break up the film. It obviously shows, the inspiration that Babbit had when she was making this film. It also is just an interesting way to help break up the pacing of the narrative. I really enjoy when films sort of structure their narrative along concepts like that. Like in the movie Love and Basketball, which also came out in 2000, the whole film is broken up into basketball quarters. Mm-hmm. As it just goes through a different phase of each character's life. I just find that fundamentally interesting. So we go into the first step, Pink, which is admitting you are a homosexual. And I did notice this as I was rewatching the film, that each step is a different color. So pink is admitting you're homosexual, and that's obviously significant because pink is a more traditionally feminine color, which they play on in this film a lot. Mm-hmm. We see that Megan is having a conversation with Mary, and we have that scene where Mary's like, well, have you had these thoughts? And Megan's like, well, I thought it was perfectly normal to have these thoughts. And Mary's like, haha, you see, you don't even think it's wrong. You don't even think it's wrong. Well, it's okay. We'll help you. Then another character comes in.
That's like a really significant thing. Like, it's we're going to tell you it's wrong because,
Yeah. And, it's a matter, and that's also a matter of perspective. I mean, they're treating it like it's they're treating her like she has some sort of debilitating condition. Like, it's like everyone has these thoughts. It's like playing on that idea of, everyone thinks about suicide sometimes. They're treating it like it's some sort of just terrible affliction that she's suffering that they can cure, and it's funny. It's funny in the sense because it's like, wow, you guys are really tone deaf. But then another character comes in named Hillary, and Hillary starts to show Megan around. It's like, oh, this is our day-to-day schedule. We have family therapy on weekends. And then we get introduced to the main love interest of this movie, Graham, played by Clea Duvall.
Yeah, and I think in that segment, visually, like even just showing up at camp, everything's more colorful. We have this pastel color palette in the middle of this like dead brown land is this,
this very colorful and inviting house.
Colorful house.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Go ahead.
I think it's meant to be metaphorical for a few things. For one thing, it's like the fact that this is such a colorful and inviting home, it's supposed to sort of lure people in, even though this is essentially one of the worst things you could do to someone in the modern age. Send them to one of these conversion camps to basically teach them that everything they are is wrong. So it's kind of a trap in that sense. It's like you're luring someone into hell with something just pretty. And it's just also just a harsh juxtaposition. The fact that the house is sitting on barren land, and literally at the property line, you have a pink fence, but you still see the barren land go into the house until like the immediate vicinity of the house, where it's just like patches of green grass. Mm-hmm. It's just it's a hard cut. It just immediately goes from dead grass to green grass, and that goes into the overall production design of this movie, the costumes and the sets. And, I brought this up while we were watching the film, the fact that, it looks like they got the same guy who did Edward Scissorhands to do this. And then I found out that when they were doing the production design of the movie, they actually took inspiration from Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, it's very campy. It's it's like a big craft project. The whole thing looks like a really big craft project. It's so fun.
It is fun. Like it'd be a fun place to hang out if it, wasn't meant to completely change who people are. But it's a gorgeous house, and like I said, they took inspiration from Edward Scissorhands. They also took inspiration from John Waters when they designed the sets for this film. They took inspiration from David LaChapelle, who's a photographer, not to be confused with Dave Chappelle, completely unrelated. And they also took inspiration from Barbie, because everything's plastic and sterile. Mm-hmm. And that is part of the point, as I found out when I did research for this film. The character of Mary, and this was a subtle detail, I didn't even notice it until I thought about it. The fact that Mary is a clean freak in the film. She constantly just does cleaning. And that's supposed to be metaphorical for the fact that she wants a sterile and artificial environment. Her character in her conception is supposed to be a metaphor for AIDS paranoia.
Ooh, I didn't think of that, but yeah.
I didn't notice it. I did research and found that out. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And that's also part of the reason why whenever you're with her, the predominant color is green because green is meant to signify a natural environment, which is supposed to be ironic because there's nothing natural about the setting that she's in. She's created an overtly sterile and clean environment to avoid any ickiness that she doesn't like. And I do want to talk more about her character later because I find her interesting.
Yeah, she's really interesting.
She's really interesting. One of the characters in this movie I feel like you could pick apart a lot because she's a very dynamic character and also obviously the antagonist of the film.
Yeah. But she's still like, she genuinely cares, you know.
She cares in her own way.
In her own way.
She cares. She cares in her own way. It's important to bring that up. The fact that, you know, when it comes to situations like this, and obviously this film is a piece of satire, but when it comes to situations like this in real life, the reason why parents and friends and family would send children to these camps is because they were genuinely worried about them. Like, obviously we know that it's a cruel thing to do, but like in these people's minds, it's like, oh my God, my child is going to be ostracized socially. My child is going to go to hell. Like, I need to do this. And that is a similar perspective that Mary has in this film. Of course, for Mary, you can tell that's also very personal because, as I mentioned earlier, her son is gay. And she very clearly has a problem with her son being gay. And I think that also goes along with probably the fact that, as you can see in this film, she doesn't have a man in her life. And I feel like she probably takes that personally.
I don't know, because the way that she also talks about, like, when she describes women and they're like
in their roles,
legs and their female parts. Yeah, I don't know. She has these desires inside of her too. Who knows what they are, but she's like a repressed person with the language that like accidentally comes out. I think she is like a little repressed.
She probably is. We could probably talk more about it later because I am genuinely interested to talk more about her. But, you know, we get to step one, admitting you're homosexual. You know, we have Megan's first therapy session, and everyone's all like, oh, here we are. You know, these are the various characters that we're going to follow throughout the film. And, you know, they're like, oh, Megan, you know, you're clearly gay. And it's like, I'm not gay. Everyone just keeps saying I'm gay. And, you know, watching this, I remember I brought it up during the movie. I thought it'd be funnier if she actually just wasn't a lesbian. She was just like that. I mean, obviously, the whole point of the film is that, you know, it's cruel the fact that we do this to people. But I honestly thought it would be funnier if it was just everyone kept on telling her she was. Everyone kept on giving her that label when, in fact, it wasn't true. It was just all a coincidence.
Well, they do have what is her name?
Graham?
Is it Jan? No.
Jan. I'm trying to remember who Jan is. So okay. Hillary's the nerdy one with glasses. Sinead is the goth one. Graham is the rebellious one, played by Clea Duvall. I think Jan's the butch one, maybe?
Yeah. So they have that character to defy that stereotype, too. You know, you see, like, a butch, decky type lady and assume that she's a lesbian. But Jan was like, no, I'm not gay.
Well, yeah, that happens later in the movie. And I find that scene interesting because, like, is she actually a lesbian? Is she a lesbian or is she in
she's
like
not.
She could be in
she just doesn't want to dress feminine. And they're showing that the gender binary or how we present ourselves doesn't have anything to do with our sexuality necessarily. It doesn't.
Well, that is the point of the film, but I also think that there's ambiguity with Jan's character, especially since we never see her again after that.
I don't think there's ambiguity because of what she says. I think her line is when she says, I just want a big fat dick. And then what's his name is like, me too, or whatever he says. Or amen, sister. The
reason I think there's ambiguity is because at the initial therapy session, she does, you know, present herself as a lesbian, but also throughout the film, there are instances where it seems like she's not. Like, well, she admits it. She talks about how she plays softball with girls. She goes along with root therapy, but she also says things throughout the film like, "Oh, I like balls."
Yeah, but that's when they're kind of all forced to find their root. So she has to say that.
Well, that's the reason why. Well, that's the reason why I think that there's ambiguity with her character.
And I think the writing, when Claire Duvall's character is like, "My mom got married in pants," like, you know, that's not a real reason, but like we're treating it in this
They're
group
they're forcing them to find a reason.
Just like I play softball, like they're treating that like, oh, that's a serious, real reason, you know?
I understand that that's part of the satire. I'm just saying I think that there is real ambiguity with her character.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. And the fact that we're arguing sort of proves my point.
I think the point of their line is to be like, no, I don't have to look feminine, but I'm into dudes.
And if that's the case, I think that's great for her, and it's unfortunate that we don't see her character again after that.
It's pretty clear, is all I'm saying. I would argue it's clear.
Okay. Like I said, we don't see her character after she says that. She just leaves. Like that's the last time we see her, and I actually want to talk more about that. Like not just her, but like that trend at the end of the film. But they have the group therapy. They force Megan to admit it, and to Megan's surprise, she actually is a lesbian. And I'll talk more about Natasha Lyonne's performance later in the film, but this is probably one of the best acted scenes from her, because there's a sense of delirium about her as she's just so confused as she has to confront this reality about herself that she didn't realize, which happens with people. That happens with people in real life. They spend their entire lives thinking, okay, this is this, life is like this, and then they discover something about themselves, and it just completely cracks their worldview. It's crazy to them that this is something about myself that I didn't know, something big about myself that I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting. And then, following that, we get to see that the character of Sinead is just shocking herself in bed as aversion therapy. Anytime she has thoughts about a woman, and, she shocks herself like every couple seconds, because that's the joke. But I found that scene interesting because she's moaning while she's shocking herself, which says to me that she's probably been a victim of reverse conditioning. People may or may not know this. There's a famous Russian scientist named Pavlov, and in the pre-Soviet era, he did experiments on dogs.
Yes, we know Pavlov therapy.
I'm explaining this to the audience, Nicole.
Okay. Go ahead.
The audience, not many people. Why are you laying down?
I'm waiting for you to explain it.
Many people may not realize this, but this Russian scientist Pavlov, he experimented with dogs, and what he would do is that every time he would bring out food to one of his dogs, he would ring a bell, and at a certain point, he wouldn't bring out food anymore. He would just ring the bell, and the same effect would happen. The dogs would slobber as if they were expecting a meal, and this became one of the earliest psychological examples of how you can condition living creatures with certain stimuli by taking one thing and correlating it to another thing. But the reason I find it interesting here is because there's been several instances throughout psychological history where Pavlovian conditioning has not worked. Not because it's not effective, but because certain desires go beyond conditioning. There's another famous example, I forget who it was, but there was a scientist who read into Pavlovian conditioning, and he thought he could use it on himself because he had a smoking problem. And what he did is that he said, okay, I will only smoke whenever I read the scientific journal. And the reason he did that is because he hated reading the scientific journal. He always thought it was dry and boring. So he thought that he could solve his smoking problem by just tying it to that. Sort of like people who say, oh, I only drink when I go out socially. But what he discovered is that not only did he not quit smoking, but he actually ended up reading the scientific journal more, and he tricked himself into enjoying reading the scientific journal.
Interesting. But yeah, I think that it's obvious that she's into it. So yeah.
Well, yeah, she's into it. She's into it. But I think it's evident. I think the reason she's into it is because she associates the shocks with the thought of sexually suggestive women. Sure. I think that's interesting. And there's also Futurama?
Yes.
There's it's in the third Futurama movie. In the third Futurama movie, which is their D&D movie, Bender's Game, there's a running subplot in the film where Leela's character gets a shock collar to keep her from being violent, because she's a very violent character, like by design. That's how her character was conceived. So everyone's all like, okay, Leela, we're sick of you hitting people. Stop hitting people. So the professor gives her a collar that shocks her whenever her thoughts turn to violence.
Ouch!
Or profanity.
Son of a cow!
Or, perversions of a sexual nature.
Ow!
And what happens in the film is that she begins to enjoy the shocks because she associates the shocks with her hitting people.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just find that interesting. I want to have complex discussions, Nicole, regarding history and psychology. Don't
You
judge me
want
for
to
that.
discuss the things you want to discuss.
Yeah, it's my YouTube channel. I'm allowed to do that.
No.
These are concepts I want to break down.
Mm-hmm.
You have me clamoring for your approval, like always. Anyway, after this aversion therapy scene, we Mary comes in to call out Megan, who has a phone call coming in from her parents, and we get a split diopter shot during the scene, which I just love. I love split diopter shots. It's like, oh my god, focus in the foreground and the background with the middle space in blur. I love that. It's amazing. I love seeing that.
It looks really cool.
It's really cool, and it's a harsh juxtaposition. And typically, the reason you have a split diopter shot is for one of two reasons. Either one, because you're trying to communicate something thematically about the film, or two, because you want to have a joke. In this film, it's the latter. Because I think in the background, you actually see that Mary, I think, is like tuning a guitar or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or ukulele or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Like she's just fiddling around with an instrument. And I think that's funny. Like there may be some deeper meaning behind that, but I just think that's kind of funny. The fact that she's just casually doing that.
Yeah, it's pretty random.
That's pretty random. I like it. Anyway, we move on to step 2, rediscovering your gender identity. And this is literally just having the characters engage in various gender stereotypes. The women are inside cleaning, changing babies, etc., etc. The men are outside playing sports and fixing cars and doing sexually suggestive things with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I love how all the cardboard standouts in the outside scenes are just so sexually suggestive. Like there's a cardboard standee painted blue holding up a gun towards another man because they're having like a war reenactment or something. And the way it looks like a guy's just shafting his Johnson to another guy's mouth. I love it. And like everything is just it's so funny. And it's funny for a couple different reasons. One, because like obviously the production designer designed the sets specifically to be sexually suggestive, but also in the world of this film, it's ironic because this is supposed to be a gay conversion camp, and it's like, oh, you have all this sexually suggestive imagery, sitting around. And you could argue that maybe they're putting temptation in the way of these kids, that way they can overcome it. But in reality, I think it just communicates how incompetent they are.
And also it's just funny, like straight stuff, like the guns and everything. It's so there's something like there's so much pageantry around some stuff that's like super straight and manly and all that it's like so much so that it is gay.
Yeah.
It's queer. Like you could make it that way.
Well, yeah. Like at a certain point, you either engage in masculinity so much.
Sports uniforms, just like I don't know.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like it loops when you go to an extreme, it loops back around. You see this in every you see this in every aspect of life. You see it in politics, you see it in society, history. When you go to a far enough extreme, it loops back around. It's like, and in this case, it's like, okay, we're going to do masculinity so much or femininity so much that it will by itself become gay, just because of how much you're engaging with it.
And this segment of the movie really hits me hard because it's definitely that enforced gender stereotype that in the movie it feels so sterile and so fake, like robotic. It's like very robotic that we're doing these things. And some of the girls are like doing a good job and like are into it, and then some of them are like, this isn't my thing. And then you're like, but you're forced to change the diapers and be good at this, And same when we saw the guys, some were like not good at chopping wood, or it wasn't.
They're not. It wasn't their thing. Like they're not good at it. And I love how like later in the film, RuPaul, when the boys are tempted, is like, if I ever catch you doing that again, I'm going to force you to watch sports all weekend, like as a punishment. And I'm like, yeah, that would suck. Like sports are boring. I know a bunch of people are going to come at me. I understand the fundamentals of like why sports is entertaining, because you're rooting for one team over another team. It goes into the human aspect of tribalism.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. It's like, it's not my thing.
Yeah,
not my thing. Let me enjoy my lesbian movie, please. But during the rediscovering your gender identity scene, this is where we get to the root therapy scene that we referenced earlier. It's basically, like we said, this is Mary trying to force these kids to acknowledge what gender abnormal thing has occurred in their life to lead to their homosexuality. And it's all nonsense, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, there's no one root cause for why someone becomes a homosexual. There's a variety of environmental and biological factors that lead to that result. Saying, oh, this is a psychological issue, so here's the root of the issue, because, you know, this is obviously induced by trauma. That's ridiculous. That's patently ridiculous. That's the joke. The fact that
traumatic brisk could do it.
That is, I was about to bring that up. That is the one thing. That is the root in the movie that I think carries some weight to it, because I'm like, yeah, if you were cut wrong, that would do it. And also, and it's the Jewish kid. So they all say what their roots are. Clea Duvall's character, Graham, says, oh, it's because my mother got married in pants. Hillary's character says it's because, you know, she went to an all-girls school. And the Jewish character, I forget his name, you know, he says he had traumatic bris. And I'm like, that's actually, out of all of these kids, he actually might have the most traumatic experience, because that would suck. Especially if, like, I don't know what sect of Judaism he would come from, because sometimes they do brisses when, you know, you're a baby, but sometimes they hold off until your bar mitzvah.
Mm.
And, you know, your bar mitzvah is around the age of 13, which is also around the age that most kids start going through puberty.
That's messed.
Yeah. So and obviously I'm not an expert in Judaism, you know, someone could probably clap back on me on that, but, like, yeah, I could imagine having a traumatic bris would have some sort of effect on you, not just sexually, but
no
in
way
terms of, like,
on 13-year-old kids.
What?
There'd be a rebellion. I don't know about that.
Well, we circumcised, like, what is it, 72% of American boys in the United States just cuz.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I just thought
crazy.
I was just, like, told that this is just what you do, and I didn't know why.
I can tell you why. And it's not because of Judaism, because America was founded on Christian values. It's not because of Judaism. It's because at a certain point in the past, people thought that if you circumcised children, it would stop them from masturbating.
I mean,
that's why.
That's probably what some people think.
Yeah. And the reason for that is because when you circumcise someone, it actually reduces their sexual sensitivity, I think, by 64%.
For men? That's a bummer.
Yes.
I feel like then that someone would have stopped that by now.
They haven't. They still do it, and the reason they still do it as a justification is because apparently it does reduce the chance of catching STDs.
Okay, well.
But do you know what else does? Wearing a condom.
That'll help.
Yeah.
Get the word out.
Yeah, I should get the word out. But yeah, no, circumcision reduces sexual sensitivity. So the reason they started doing it was because they thought it would stop children from masturbating. And it's actually funny because one of the initial people to propose this, I believe it was Arthur Graham, who invented the graham cracker. And it's kind of ironic that there's a character named Graham in this movie.
Speaking of masturbation, do you want to talk about the masturbation?
We'll get to the masturbation scene.
Go back to our topic, okay?
Look, we got sidetracked because of circumcision. How does this always happen?
Traumatic brisk.
But no, like, you know, yeah, it reduces male sensitivity, which sucks, and obviously female circumcision's even worse. It's like, I can't feel 68% of pleasure. I can't feel any of it. It's like, it sucks. It's a terrible thing that we do to kids, and we should probably stop doing that.
Probably
yeah.
should.
Anyway, we're gonna pivot back to the movie. I promise. Oh, I forgot to mention that the rediscovering your gender identity segment is coded green because, like I said, green is supposed to represent the natural order. And now we're moving on to step 3, family therapy, which is coded yellow because it's supposed to be a joyous occasion, having all your relatives come and tell you why you're broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. The family therapy scene is very interesting, and it also works a lot to establish Graham's motivation in the movie because, you know, she's a rebellious young woman, but she's a trust fund baby.
Yeah.
She has a rich dad and a bad stepmom. It's like a shitty fairy tale. And the dad is like, Graham, I hope you're getting more out of this experience than these kids. These kids, they ain't it. they ain't it. You know, we're spending a lot of money to fix these kids, and it's like, okay, okay, whatever you say, whatever you say, man. And then he leaves, and he's like, okay, I'll make this perfectly clear. If you don't stick to this program and get fixed, no car, no college, no trust fund. Got it? Okay, cool. Bye. And I'm like, wow. And, you know, that shows the danger that, you know, real people have to go through in these situations when their family won't accept them. They just cut them off. And it isn't just financial. It's also emotional. It's like your family will disown you in some cases because they're all like, we can't approve of your lifestyle. And it's like, that's different.
Or at the very least, and it's not least, but like they look at you like you need to be cured or there's something deviant or off about you.
Yeah. Which is and you know, and this still happens to people today. The family's just like, oh no, what happened? What happened here? Is God punishing me? It's like, bro, it just happened. It just happened, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, family therapy. And during the family therapy scene, we also get Megan's explanation for what her root could potentially be. And I think this goes back to how Megan's mother is kind of actually like the strong arm in the family. Because Megan says that, you know, her root could possibly be the fact that her father was unemployed for like 9 months and that her mother had to support them. So, and Mary translates that into, oh, okay, you don't respect men because you don't respect your father because your mother was domineering and your father was submissive. And I'm like, that is not, like, it's bullshit. The root idea is bullshit. But that being said, that's also true in the context of the movie, the fact that the mother is the more active one in the relationship.
Yeah, they definitely set that up in the beginning.
Yeah. So, like, it's bullshit, the reasoning that Megan is giving. She's just trying to find a reason. But the actual context is true, which I found interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, after family therapy... Oh! Okay, this actually does pivot to what we want to talk about, masturbation.
Do you always do it all in order?
What was that?
You like to go through your movies like chronologically? Like
I try to. Like, we jump around a bit to address things that happen later that applied to a character's motivations earlier. There's a bit of jumping around, but I try to go chronologically. And also, considering that this film is structured like a 5-step program, I think that's appropriate.
Sometimes, like, I wonder for that scene, like, if she even knew what masturbation was before she went there and, like, learned about it.
I don't think she did.
You know?
I don't think she did. No, I don't think she did. Because, you know, this happens with kids occasionally, that they don't really, you know, they don't really discover that sort of thing until like mid-adolescence.
Yeah, and it's the first time that she even's like, oh, like you can think about a girl that way. Like maybe it expanded her mind even more than it would have if no one would have sent her to camp.
Exactly. And, you know, it goes along with the overall point of the movie, which is her discovering herself. Yep. Funny thing, discovering herself was actually the title of the first script I ever wrote. Anyway, this masturbation scene is actually interesting. And, you know, I brought it up during the movie because I'm like, oh, I think the masturbation scene is significant. And I couldn't remember why. And then I did remember why. There's a documentary that came out in 2006. It's one of the only documentaries that I actually like. It's called This Film Is Not Yet Rated. It's about the ratings board, the MPAA, or now the MPA, and how the MPAA basically kills films by unfairly rating them. And But I'm a Cheerleader initially received an NC-17 rating because of the masturbation scene. I was rewatching the documentary last night and I was like, oh yeah, that's why I remembered that scene. And that's the only reason I remembered that scene. Yeah. It's a very interesting documentary. It's obviously a bit out of date because it's been nearly 20 years and the ratings board people get cycled out, obviously. Yeah. But not much has changed. And, you know, hearing that this film initially received an NC-17, I was like, that's ridiculous. That's like patently ridiculous.
It's like so PG.
It is. It's a very PG movie. I think they only say PG. Yeah. I think they only say once.
Yeah.
Like, this is a PG-13. It's a soft R at worst. Like, it's a very...
I would say, okay, maybe PG-13, but I wouldn't give it, like, an R rating.
Yeah, no, like it's
My
ridiculous. And what's your cat doing?
He just farted. He's being like a little ragdoll.
He's a little goober. But like, but no, it's ridiculous. And it's like, I've seen NC-17 films. There's not many of them. Less than 100 of them exist because most films re-edit themselves to avoid that rating.
Yeah.
But I've seen NC-17 films. I've seen some nasty ones, and this is not one of them.
No, it's so good.
Yeah. Like a movie like Mysterious Skin, directed by Greg Araki. That movie deserves to be rated NC-17.
I haven't seen that one.
It is probably one of the nastiest films I've ever seen in my life. That film deserved that rating. And that's not throwing shade against Greg Araki. He made that film exactly the way it was supposed to be. But just... Ugh. It is a very... just... seriously. But yeah, this film is not yet rated. It's a very good documentary. It's one of the only documentaries I actually like. I have a copy of it right here. Directed by Kirby Dick. So many interviews from so many different directors who've made controversial films. It's great. Anywho, during this masturbation scene, Megan is not the only one who's enjoying herself. She sees that two characters are actually, two young men are actually getting off behind Mary's desk. The characters.
So hypocritical telling on them.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Megan, you narc.
But like, maybe she's just so embarrassed she can't handle it.
Like, to be fair, like, she doesn't like men, for one. But for another thing, it's like, this is her first time experiencing anything sexual. She was just masturbating probably for the first time, and then she sees two men going at it. The characters of Dolph and Clayton. And Dolph is actually played by Dante Bosco, who I love, by the way. I love Dante Bosco so much. He's the voice of Zuko in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Rufio. He's Rufio from...
He does a lot of great voice acting.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. I think he was also the voice of Jake Long in American Dragon Jake Long. I think. I love Dante Bosco. Yeah, no, these two boys are going at it, and Megan's freaking out. She's like, ew, 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 ew. And then RuPaul shows up, and he's like, oh, what's going on? Some premature simulation? and then she narcs on them. She narcs so hard. And
yep.
Yeah. And Dolph gets kicked out of camp, and Clayton gets put in the doghouse. Literally. Like, literally. They have a doghouse on site to put kids in when they act up. I'm like, that's I'm calling Child Protective Services. But going on from that point, everyone in the camp starts looking at Megan differently because, like, she narked. She narked.
Yep.
But one person who looks at her even more differently is Graham. This is, at this point, Graham starts to look at Megan in a more romantic sense. That scene where they're having lunch, their eyes meet each other, and that's sort of like the first instance where you see the two connect on a deeper level. Because up until that point, Graham sort of resented Megan for being prissy and girly. Like, she thought it was an act. She even says in the movie, I thought it was an act, but you really are as sweet as pie. But, that's the first instance that the two of them connect. And this brings us to step 4, demystifying the opposite sex.
Is this the simulation part?
No, that's later. That's like step 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're at like roughly the halfway point of the film. And during
only the halfway point, Ben. I thought we were going to talk for an hour.
I'm trying. I thought it would be an hour. I'll be honest about this. This is going to be a nightmare to edit. I'll be frank about that.
Yeah, but okay, listen. If you're going to make your video shorter, you can't do a summary of the whole video.
Do you want me to shotgun this? I can just shotgun this.
Yeah, because every time I try to talk about something, you shut me down to talk about the next thing that is in the sequence.
Okay,
and then
I'll let you talk.
Listen, but no. I don't want to talk about anything. I'm just saying, if you want to cut down these videos, I think we need to think of a different format instead of summarizing the whole movie, because then that will take 2 hours per movie.
You are correct. So I will rush through this. I will try to rush through this. I'll try. Because this thing, no. Okay, they had that. Like, okay, step 4, demystifying the opposite sex. It's orange because Graham and Megan are actually enjoying themselves. They're enjoying themselves. They're bonding. You see during this montage scene as Mary's going throughout their spiel, they're like getting closer together.
I didn't pick up on the colors. That's cute.
What?
Okay. I said I like that you picked up on
Yeah,
the colors because
exactly.
I didn't ever think about the colors.
Well, because this film has such vibrant color scheming in its costuming and production design, and I noticed on my rewatch that each step has a different color. That just clicked in my head, and I was like, okay, let me do research to figure out what is what. But yeah, they're getting closer, and after that montage, the kids sneak out, and that's when we meet the characters of Larry and Lloyd, who run the Underground Gay Railroad.
I love those characters.
They're pretty cool. I like them as well.
Yeah.
They apparently they used to work for Mary, but then they were like, we can't live this way anymore. Let's do whatever.
They
So they take they take the kids out to a bar called the Cocksucker. Yeah,
it's a funny bar name.
That's it. It's a funny bar name. It's called the Cocksucker. And at the bar, Megan dances with a woman for the first time. She's resistant to do it, but Graham pushes her to do it. And then Graham dances with the character of Sinead. Sinead starts groping Graham. Megan gets upset because obviously she's grown more attracted to Graham. So she rushes outside. And I couldn't figure out the color scheming for the outside scenes because she gets out of the bar and you see on her right is a green window and on her left is a purple window. And then she rushes to the alley, which is coded red because she's upset. But the contrasting of the colors, I couldn't quite get that. It could have just been, a directing choice.
Yeah, maybe just to feel like a bar, but I think the red on them is intentional.
Yeah, because she's supposed to be upset. It's supposed to be like an angry color.
Yeah.
Anywho, Graham rushes out to comfort Megan. The two of them argue a bit, and then they share their first kiss.
Yep.
Yeah. They share their first kiss. It's the first time Megan has ever kissed another woman, and it feels different for her. She actually enjoys it. It isn't like her boyfriend trying to eat her.
Yep.
Yeah.
So good. I only have a few more minutes because
What?
But it's almost been 2 hours. I had 2 hours. I'm working today.
Okay. Well, when are you actually working? I'll try to rush through this so we can get to the discussion.
What? There's a discussion?
Yes.
The whole time I've been trying to discuss, and you're like, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah, it's because there's a discussion portion.
We need to do a part 2 then.
Okay, when do you have time to do a part 2?
In between the 15th and the 22nd.
Okay. Well, let's try to finish the film summary then, and then we'll get to that, okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
But I only have a few minutes to finish film summary. And
how many minutes?
I have till 2 o'clock.
Okay. Damn it. This is gonna be great. Anyway,
you didn't tell me to block more than an hour, and we blocked 2.
Yeah, I didn't expect this. I will do better.
It's because I pushed back on you.
I will do better. What?
Is it because I pushed back on you?
What do you mean push back on me?
Or maybe it's because I let you talk too much.
Okay. Anyway, what was I doing? Right, they kiss. They kiss for the first time. It's very nice. And then Mary starts cleaning. She discovers they go into the bar and
finds the matches.
Yeah, she finds the matches. She starts confronting each of the kids. Graham tries to pivot by saying that she has a crush on the Jewish kid. Megan's parents deliver her an ultimatum. And then they start picketing Lloyd and Larry's house with funny signs.
Yeah.
I pointed this out while we were watching. I was like, there's no way that's real. That is made up for. I found t-shirts on Amazon. I was like, oof.
So good.
Anyway, this pivots to the final test where they're actually, utilizing all the gender role training that they've been doing. Everyone passes except for one guy. And then at the end of this, we have the first sexual encounter between Megan and Graham. It's passionate, it's loving. The two girls, feel something for each other. And then everything changes. We come to the end of the second act. This is the all is lost moment. As Megan and Graham get caught, Megan gets, told by Mary, okay, I'm going to throw you out of the camp unless you simulate with my son. And Megan's like, I'm not doing that. Look at him. Megan leaves. Graham agrees to it because Graham is scared. And I like this because it's a very interesting juxtaposition because Megan has been the obedient goody-goody girl throughout this entire situation. Meanwhile, Graham has been the more rebellious one. But the fact that they switch roles in this because Graham obviously has more to lose, I find that interesting. And even though it's subversive, it also feels like it's set up appropriately in the narrative based on what we understand about Graham's character. And this brings us to step 5, which is the simulated sexual lifestyle.
The costumes were so funny in this scene.
They really were. They were basically Adam and Eve costumes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely looked very Mormon. I had some very Mormon flashbacks from that.
I could imagine, like it was the magic underwear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's temple garb that looks like that with like the
maybe they just used that. Anyway, they have the simulated sexual encounter. Meanwhile, Megan, is living with Lloyd and Larry, enjoying her gay lifestyle with Lloyd and Larry. Lloyd and Larry, I love those characters, and it's so interesting. You see a conflict between them as they're arguing over whether or not Megan is ready to continue on with their life, and they resolve it like immediately within 2 minutes because they properly communicate with each other.
Yeah, and it's really like lovely, and the way that she looks at it is just like, oh, like,
yeah, it's like I could get behind this.
Yeah.
But Megan is obviously missing Graham, and Dante Bosco's character Dolph is missing Clayton. So the two of them crack up a plan to go to the graduation ceremony to win them back. Dolph gets Clayton back pretty easily, but Megan has to work to get Graham back because Graham's like, I'm not doing it. And following this, Megan does the only thing that she knows how to do. She cheers. She cheers for Graham. She tells Graham that you're the one, I want to be with you. And that leads the two girls to run away together. It's framed
like, not that it's the only thing that she knows how to do. I think she knows that that's what makes her happy. And so she's like, maybe that will make Graham happy, because she explains why she loves cheerleading so much in a scene before when she's trying to write that cheer.
Mm-hmm.
God is good, God is great, and then Graham is like, God is straight, like as a joke, and she's like, yeah, actually that's great.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, no, it was a good rhyme. Not good for what the film's trying to do, but it was a good rhyme. I forgot to mention
her like joy, despite like what it is, even though she's cheering on her own demise.
Well, it's stereotypical of her, but it's also like this is what she's good at. This is what she knows how to do, and she enjoys it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so she's trying to like contextualize what she enjoys by using that as a coping mechanism for the situation that she's in. Yeah, I enjoy that. And I also forgot to mention step 5 is yellow, once again joy, and the graduation is purple because that's meant to represent like royalty or spirituality or whatever.
Oh,
yeah. Anyway, Graham ends up running away with Megan. She's moved by the performance. It's very much framed like a runaway bride situation, and the two of them run off together, and they live happily ever after. And then we get a funny after credit scene where Megan's parents go to gay A. They go to gay A. It's like, my daughter's a homosexual. Hi. And that's how we end the movie.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Pretty funny. So obviously there's more I want to talk about. I think there's more that the two of us can discuss.
Yeah.
Part two. Yeah. I think this actually may work. I don't know if I should split up part 1 and part 2. I remember Taiki actually suggested that. But this actually might work for a couple different reasons. One, because I was afraid whether or not I'd get this out by the end of Pride Month.
Mm-hmm.
But 2, I checked the 25th anniversary of But I'm a Cheerleader is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of film festivals, obviously. It was released in America on July 7th, 2000. So I could just release part 1 now at the end of Pride Month.
And then
part 2.
July 7th.
Yeah, July 7th.
Nice.
Yeah. Which, good idea?
I like that idea.
Yeah. It works out. Anyway, stay tuned for part 2. Anyone who bothered watching this.
Everyone's gonna watch it because we're such a dynamic duo.
Yeah, fist bump. Woo.
And this guy.
By the way, where do you want the people to follow you, Nicole?
Panic at the Pet Shop.
Panic at the Pet Shop on Instagram.
Yeah.
I will put it in the description, and we will see you for part 2. I will hold you to doing a part 2.
Yeah, I want to do part 2.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you about compulsory heterosexuality, which is a theme in this movie.
Yes. and I have several things to bring up on a technical level about what I think is good and bad about this movie. Because after we saw this movie, I'm like, oh, this actually isn't bad. I remembered it being bad. This is really funny. A lot of the satire went over my head the first time I saw it. So I have a lot to talk about. Like,
it's really good. I just want to let you know, like, I like this. I like your whole.
Thank you.
It filled out really nice.
Thank you.
Oh, good.
I'll try to wear the same outfit for continuity's sake when we do the part 2. I know you probably won't.
I was like, do I have to? No, maybe I will. I wear this all the time.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.